Hey guys, welcome back to another speaking class here on LEARNAKAN. If you've been following our speaking series, and if you haven't, I'll leave some links up here and in the description box further below. Please go and check them out, alright? But if you've been following, then you would know that for our last 2 lessons in the series, we focused on how to introduce ourselves in Chi, and for the second one, we looked at how to get to know, other people. All right. Again, I'll leave some links up here. Please go and check them out after you are done with this one. So for the first one, the self-introduction one, you would realize that the pronouns that we used were mainly the first person pronoun. So we used more of I, my, all right? So my name is that, I am that, we used more of the first person pronouns. And then for the second one, getting to know somebody else, we combined the first person pronouns with the second person because it was more of a dialogue between 2 people, myself and you. Okay, so I ask you, what is your name? And then you tell me what your name is. All right, I ask you where you are from, and then you tell me where you are from. So today I want us to move away from the first person and then the second person pronouns and now move towards the third person. Okay, so today we are not talking about me, we are not talking about you, we are talking about other people, third person. Today we are learning to talk about the family. And the key to making the most out of these speaking topics is to not just listen through them, but to take notes and also, craft some personalized conversations around these. So craft something that fits within your own context and actually speak them out. Okay, so the more you speak, the better you become. Let's start after this. Let's start with the number of people there are in someone's family. So to ask how many people there are in someone's family, you can ask nipa dodoɔ sɛn na wɔwɔ w'abusua mu. Nipa dodoɔ sɛn na wɔwɔ w'abusua mu. Okay? Nipa dodoɔ sɛn na wɔwɔ w'abusua mu. Now, if the context is clear, so an instance where you and I, the speaker and the addressee, we both know that we are talking about the family, then I can just ask, moye say, or I can put in there the dodoɔ, and then I have moye dodoɔ sɛn. Moye dodoɔ sɛn. How many are you? To tell how many people there are in your family, so like a response to the questions that we've just given, you can say nipa dash na wɔwɔ m'abusua mu. So obviously the dash here is the placeholder where you put the number of people there are in your family. So if you are 6, for example, you say nipa nsia na wɔwɔ m'abusua mu. Nipa nsia na wɔwɔ m'abusua mu. Alright? Nipa nsia na wɔwɔ m'abusua mu. If the context is given, and in this case it is because someone just asked you how many people there are in your family. Alright? So we both know that we are talking about the number of people in the family. In this case, you can just say yeye nsia. Yeye nsia. So you just replace nsia with any number of people that you have in your family. So yeye miensa, yeye nson, yeye nkron, yeye dubako, and on and on. Now let's move to where you are from. And by you, I mean the entire family. Okay? So to ask where, this family is from, where someone's family is from, you can ask mufrehe. 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 And for, the question words, when we looked at the question words, if you missed, those lessons, I'll leave a link up here. There's a whole playlist on it. I told you that just as you are able to flip your question words around in English, we are also able to do that. Okay, so in English you say what is this, but you could also say this is what. Okay, we are also able to do that. So when I ask mufri he, I can also ask ehe na mufri. Ehe na mufri, okay? And it's the same thing. So basically for the first one, I'm asking you are from where? And then the second one, I'm asking where are you from, okay? Now, to respond to this, so to tell where it is that you are from, I mean the whole family, you can say yefri offenso, for example. So wherever it is that you're from, just replace offenso here with that and you have it. So yefri offenso, yefri nungwa, yefri swame, yefri amanfrom, and on and on. Now let's move to where you live. And again, by you, I mean the entire family, right? So the plural you. So to ask where you live, I'll ask motehe. Motehe. So we have the mo here being you plural, right? And te here is to live at, right? And we have the question word he, where. And once we have a question word, you should know that we can flip it. So we can also have ehe na mote, okay? Ehe na mote. So you have motehe or ehe na mote. And in response to this, you can say yete, and then you add the name of, the town or the city where you live, okay? So I can say yete Tafo, okay? Or yete Pankrono, or yete Mamprobi. But you should note that you can only use this if you live with your family, right? But if you don't, then you have to say it for yourself, I mean where you live, and also say something different for where your family lives, okay? So you can say, oh, mebusuafoɔ te Tafo, nanso mete Teshi, for example, okay? Or mebusuafoɔ te Swame, nanso mete Nkran. Let's move to the names. So the name of your father, the name of your mother, the name of your, eldest sibling, and on, okay? Now let's start with the name of your father. So for that, I can ask you, wo papa din the same? Wo papa din the same, okay? Wo papa din the same. Or I could ask, wo papa the same? Wo papa the same? Wo papa the same? So in response to any of these questions, you can say, me papa din de Owura Sechi, for example, okay? Me papa din de Owura Sechi. So we have Owura Sechi here as Mr. Sechi, okay? So you can replace this with any name at all. Me papa din de Owura Asamoah. Me papa din de Owura Boafo. Me papa din de Owura Echampon, and on, okay? So just replace this with the name of your dad and you are done. You could also simply say, me papa de Owura Sechi, okay? Or me papa de Owura Boafo, and on, okay? Let's move to your mother's name. So I could ask, wo maame din the same? Just as we did with the, the dad one, right? So you have, wo maame din the same. Wo maame din the same, okay? Wo maame din the same. Or wo maame the same. Wo maame the same, okay? Wo maame the same. And again, in response to this, you could say, me maame din de Owura Sechi, okay? Me maame din de Owura Sechi. So we have Owura as Mr., right? If you add Yere, which on its own is wife. So if you add wife to Mr., you have Mrs. Okay, so you have Owura Sechi, Mrs. Sechi. All right, so me maame din de Owura Sechi. Or you could just say me maame de Owura Sechi. All right, me maame de Owura Sechi. Moving on, if I want to ask you how many siblings you have, I could ask, wo nuanom ye dodoɔ sɛn? Wo nuanom ye dodoɔ sɛn? Wo nuanom ye dodoɔ sɛn? So we have nuanom here as, siblings, the plural. The singular is just nua, sibling, all right? So if you know anything about how we form our plurals in Chi, you would know that generally for kinship terms, so for family terms, we form their plurals by just attaching nom, the suffix nom to the end of, the term, and then you have it. So you have nianom, we have ejanom, we have enanom, we have siwanum, we have orphanum, and on and on. Instead of this, you could also ask, uwo nianom saying. Uwo nianom saying. So you have the wo here as to have, all right? We have a dedicated lesson on this up here. So you have uwo nianom saying. So in response to any of these questions, you could say, mewo nianom mienu. Mewo nianom mienu. So, the mienu here is the number. So whichever number of people that you have, you could just, replace mienu with that. Okay? So, mewo nianom miensa, mewo nianom nsia, mewo nianom nkron, and on and on. Or you could say, me nianom ye mienu. Me nianom ye mienu. I could follow this up by asking how many of your siblings are males and how many are females. And for this one, because the context is already given, we know we are talking about siblings here, I could just say ma yeseng, okay? Ma yeseng, how many are females, okay? Ma yeseng, or mema yeseng. Mema yeseng, all right? Mema yeseng. But if the context is not given or it's not clear enough, then I could ask uwo niama dodoɔ seng. Uwo niama dodoɔ seng, right? Uwo niama dodoɔ seng, or uwo niamema dodoɔ seng. Uwo niamema dodoɔ seng. So to tell how many of your siblings are males and how many are females, if the context is given or is clear enough, then you could just say ma ye mienu, for example. Ma ye mienu. So just replace mienu with whichever number of sisters you have, and you have it. Okay? And you could say mema ye miensa. Mema ye miensa. But if the context is not clear enough or is not given at all, then you can say mewo niama mienu. Mewo niama mienu, or mewo niamema miensa. Mewo niamema miensa. So again, just replace miensa with whichever number of brothers that you have, and you have it. I could also ask you who is the eldest amongst the siblings, right? So who is the older one? And for that, I'll ask, Hwane penny? Hwane penny? Okay? Hwane penny. So we have hwane as one of the question words. Again, I'll leave links up here to, the question words. So we have hwane penny. Hwane is who, and you have penny as, the older one. So hwane penny, who is the eldest? And in response to this, if you are the older one, then you could just say many penny. Many penny. Many penny. So you just do away with the question word and then just put yourself there. So you have many penny, okay? But if you are not, let's say your brother Kofi Boache is, the older one, you could just say Kofi Boache ne penny. Kofi Boache ne penny, okay? Kofi Boache ne penny. Now, this was about, the eldest amongst the siblings. I could also ask for the youngest, all right? The last born. In Chi, last born is Kaakyire. 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 So if you break this down, we have Kaakyire, okay? Kaakyire. Ka means to remain, okay? And Akyire is the back. So literally, Kaakyire just means the one who, remains at the back, the one who came last. Okay, so I could ask, Hwane Kaakyire? Hwane Kaakyire? Hwan ne Kaakyire. So again, if you are the youngest, you are the last born, then you could just say me ne Kaakyire. Me ne Kaakyire. But if you are not, let's say your sister Amma is the youngest, then you would say Amma ne Kaakyire. Amma ne Kaakyire. And by the way, Kaakyire is the last born child, but the firstborn is Piesie. 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 We could also talk about this from the angle of who comes after who, right? So we have talked about who the eldest is, and we've talked about who the youngest is. But we could also talk about this from the angle of who comes after who. So, for example, we said Kofi Boakye is the older one, right? So we could ask who comes after Kofi Boakye, right? So for that, we could ask, hwan na odi Kofi Boakye echi? Hwan na odi Kofi Boakye echi? So we have di echi, which is the phrasal verb to follow, right? To follow, to come after. So literally, we are asking who follows Kofi Boakye. So you could just replace Kofi Boakye here with any of the siblings and then ask who comes after that person, right? So hwan na odi Amma echi? Hwan na odi Adwoa echi? In fact, we could ask hwan na odi Wechi? Who comes after you? Okay? Hwan na odi Wechi? In response to this, if, for example, you are the one who comes after Kofi Boakye, you could say, Mena medi Kofi Boakye echi. Mena medi Kofi Boakye echi. It is I who comes after Kofi Boakye. Okay? Mena medi Kofi Boakye echi. If Kwame is the one who comes after Kofi Boakye, we can say Kwame na odi Kofi Boakye echi. Kwame na odi Kofi Boakye echi. So whomever comes after Kofi Boakye, just put his or her name here, and then you have it. And if the question is hwan na odi Wechi? Who comes after you? Then you could answer Amma na odi Mechi. Amma na odi Mechi. Or you could also say Mechiriba ne Amma. Mechiriba ne Amma. Mechiriba ne Amma. So Mechiriba is just the one who comes after me. So instead of Amma na odi Mechi, I could just say Mechiriba ne Amma, and it will mean the same thing. Okay? Now let's move to the occupation of your parents. So what work does your mom and dad do? Let's start with your dad. So if I want to ask you what work your dad does, I'll ask, wo papa ye adwuma bɛn? Wo papa ye adwuma bɛn? Wo papa ye adwuma bɛn? So literally, I'm asking your dad does what work? Okay? Wo papa ye adwuma bɛn? And once we have a question word here, you should note that we can flip it, and then we have adwuma bɛn na wo papa ye. Adwuma bɛn na wo papa ye. Alright? Adwuma bɛn na wo papa ye. So in response to this, you can say me papa ye okuani, for example. Me papa ye okuani. Me papa ye okuani. So we have okuani here as a farmer, right? So whichever occupation that your dad is into, just replace okuani with that, and then you have it. So if your dad is a teacher, you say me papa ye ɔkyerɛkyerɛni. Me papa ye ɔkyerɛkyerɛni. If your dad is a trader, you say me papa ye dwedini. Me papa ye dwedini. So we can ask the same question of your mom. So I could ask, wo maame ye adwuma bɛn? Wo maame ye adwuma bɛn? Alright? Wo maame ye adwuma bɛn? And again, once there's a question word here, we can flip it, and then we have Ejuma bɛn na wo maame yɛ. Ejuma bɛn na wo maame yɛ. If your mom is on retirement, you could say, me maame wɔ ahomegyem. Me maame wɔ ahomegyem. Me maame wɔ ahomegyem. Now let's talk about age. All right, let's start with your dad. So if I want to ask you, how old your dad is, I could ask, wo papa edi mfie sɛn? Wo papa edi mfie sɛn? Wo papa edi mfie sɛn? And in response to this, you can say, me papa edi mfie aduosia, for example. Okay? Me papa edi mfie aduosia. Alright? If your dad is 70 years, you can say, me papa edi mfie aduoson. Me papa edi mfie aduoson. If your dad is 45 years, you can say, me papa edi mfie aduanainum. Me papa edi mfie aduanainum. Since the context is already given in the question, so I asked you, o papa edi mfie sɛn, right? So once I ask that, we both know we are talking about the age of your dad, right? So you will not be wrong to respond to this with me papa edi mfie aduosia, for example. No, it's perfectly correct. But if you want to give a snappy response, right, then you can do away with the me papa bit and replace that with a pronoun. So you can just say wedi mfie aduosia, right? Wedi mfie aduosia. Wedi mfie aduasa miensa. Wedi mfie aduasa miensa. Okay? So we can ask the same question of your mom. Wo maame edi mfie sɛn? Wo maame edi mfie sɛn? How old is your mom? And in response, you can say, me maame edi mfie aduonunkron, for example. Me maame edi mfie aduonunkron. Me maame edi mfie aduokron. Me maame edi mfie aduokron. And again, since the context is given, we can be snappy with our response by just saying wedi mfie aduokron. Wedi mfie aduokron. I could ask the same question of your siblings, right? So we identified your older sibling as Kofi Boache, right? So I could ask, Wunia Kofi Boache edi mfie sɛn? Wunia Kofi Boache edi mfie sɛn? Wunia Kofi Boache edi mfie sɛn? And in response, you can say, Minia Kofi Boache edi mfie aduasanson. Okay? Minia Kofi Boache edi mfie aduasanson. Or simply, wedi mfie aduasanson. But please make sure that the context is clear in order to use, the pronoun. So, wedi mfie aduasanson. Now let's move to physical descriptions. So let's describe some physical features of our dad, our mom, our sister, our uncle, our brother, and on, okay? Let's start with our dad. So let's say your dad is a tall man. You can say, me papa ye nipa tenten. Me papa ye nipa tenten, all right? Me papa ye nipa tenten. Or simply, me papa wa. Me papa wa. So you can see tenten and you can see wa. And this brings us to an aspect of chi adjectives. We are going to have a separate lesson on this in the adjective series. I'll leave a link up here to, the adjective series. You already have some lessons in that series, so you can start with that. But just to give you an idea, in English, you can say, for example, tall boy, right? Tall boy. But then you can also say the boy is tall, right? The boy is tall. Now, if you look at these two examples, we are using the same adjective, tall, right? But functionally, they are different. For the first one, tall boy, this adjective tall is attributive, right? It is being attributed to the boy here. And then the second one, the tall that comes after the to be verb is predicative. When we get down to, the dedicated lesson on this, we are going to talk more on that. But what I'm saying here is, even though they look the same, functionally they are different. But English makes this very easy. For the first time, I'm conceding that, English makes this very easy because it uses the same, form of the adjective for both cases, right? But this is where it gets a bit difficult, in Chi, because for Chi, for most of our adjectives, we have different forms for, to perform the attributive function, and then different forms to perform the predicative functions. So you can see me papa ye nipa tenten here, because we have nipa tenten as a tall person, right? Tall person, attributive, right? So we have tenten here as attributive. But we can say me papa wa, and now it becomes my father is tall. So now you see the tall coming after the to be verb is, and it's different, right? So me papa ye nipa tenten, and then we have me papa wa. If you don't get it up to this point, don't worry. When you get down to the dedicated lesson on this, I'll explain further. So we can have the opposite for our mother. So we can have me maame ye nipa tietia. Me maame ye nipa tietia. So attributive, right? Me maame ye nipa tietia. Or predicative, we can have me maame yetia. Me maame yetia. But in speech, you mostly hear this as me maame yetia. Me maame yetia. Me maame yetia. So there's some sort of glide in the middle, right? So me maame yetia. We can even do comparisons here. So we can have me papa wa chain me maame. Me papa wa chain me maame. And for size, we can say me papa ye nipa kesiye. Me papa ye nipa kesiye. Okay? Me papa ye nipa kesiye. So this is attributive. So if you want to do it predicatively, we can say me papa so. Me papa so. Okay? Me papa so. We can also say me maame ye nipa tia tia. Me maame ye nipa tia tia. Me maame ye nipa tia tia, or me maame ye tia. Me maame ye tia. And then we can talk about complexion. So we can say me nua Kofi Boakye ye nipa tuntum. Me nua Kofi Boakye ye nipa tuntum. Me nua Kofi Boakye ye nipa tuntum. All right? And then we can say me nua ba ama ye nipa koko. Me nua ba ama ye nipa koko. All right? Me nua ba ama ye nipa koko. Next, let's talk about likes and dislikes. So to ask, for example, what food your dad likes best, for example, then I can ask, Aduane bɛn na wo papa pepa. Aduane bɛn na wo papa pepa. Aduane bɛn na wo papa pepa. So I can ask the same question of your mom. Aduane bɛn na wo maame pepa. Aduane bɛn na wo maame pepa. Aduane bɛn na wo nua Kofi Boakye pepa. Aduane bɛn na w'akyiri ba no pepa. Okay? Aduane bɛn na w'akyiri ba no pepa. So to respond to this, you can say aduane a me papa pepa ne bayera yache, for example. All right? Aduane a me papa pepa ne bayera yache. Aduane a me papa pepa ne bayera yache. So for your mom, you could say aduane a me maame pepa ne emo, for example. So just replace, the food with any food that your mother, your dad, your sister, or whomever likes best. Okay? Aduane a m'akyiri ba no pepa ne fufuo ne nkrakra. Okay? Aduane a mechiri ba no pepa ne fufuo ne nkrakra. So having talked about the food that your dad, your mom, your sister, your brother likes best, you could also talk about the food that they don't like at all, right? The food that they don't eat at all. So you could say, for example, aduane a me maame chiri ne banku. Aduane a me maame chiri ne banku. So you can just replace banku with any food that your mom does not eat, all right? So aduane a me maame chiri ne waakye, for example. Aduane a me chiri ba no chiri ne acheke. I could also ask for the game that, for example, your sister likes best, right? So I could ask, agro ben na unia ba ama pepa. Agro ben na unia ba ama pepa, okay? Or agro ben na unia bema kofi buache pepa, right? Agro ben na unia bema kofi buache pepa. And in response to this, you can just say, agra minya bema kofi buache pepa ne ball bo, for example, okay? Agra minya bema kofi buache pepa ne ball bo. So you can just replace ball bo with any other, activity or any other game. So you could say, agra minya ba ama pepa ne ampi, for example, okay? Agra miniaba ama pepa ne ampi. I could also ask you of the relationship status of your siblings. We've been using Kofi Buache and Ama, so let's just stick with that, all right? So I could ask if Kofi Buache is married, if, he has a girlfriend, and on, all right? So for that, I could ask Kofi Buache aware. Kofi Buache aware. Kofi Buache aware. And in response, if indeed he is married, you would say ane Kofi Buache aware. Ane Kofi Buache aware. Okay? But if he's not, then you would say Debbie Kofi Buache unware. Debbie Kofi Buache unware. I could ask unyaba ama wompena. Unyaba ama wompena. So let's say I'm asking you because I'm interested, right? So I ask you, unyaba ama wompena. And if indeed she has, a boyfriend, in which case I'll be heartbroken, then you would say, ane minyaba ama wompena. All right? Ane minyaba ama wompena. Ane minyaba ama wompena. But if she doesn't have a boyfriend, then you'd say Debbie minyaba ama inimpena. Debbie minyaba ama inimpena. So you can use this frame to ask and respond to similar questions. So for example, you could use this to ask if the sister has a child, for example, right? So you could ask unyaba ama woba. Unyaba ama woba. All right? Unyaba ama woba. Or simply ama woba. That is if we both know who ama is, right? So we have ama woba. And in response to this, if indeed she has a child, then, and again, the context is given here. We both know we are talking about the sister ama. So you can just say ane owoba. Ane owoba, right? Ane owoba. If she doesn't have a child, then you say Debbie oniba. Debbie oniba. If she has more than a single child, then you say ane owo ma. Ane owo ma. So ma is the plural of ba, child, right? So we have ba as child, and then we have ma as children. So ane owo ma. Let's end the lesson here. This is quite an extensive one, so we are going to extend this with a separate speaking practice video in the short tree conversation practice series. So please be on the lookout for that. We are going to explore a sample conversation around this topic so that you'll be able to make the most out of what you've learned today. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so before you leave. I hope to catch you next time. It's bye for now.